Thank you for the happiest year of my life. Thank you for
Good morning, everyone. It is a brand new year, and for the most part, I think it is proper to start by saying thank you for walking this path with me. You listened and talked about the little things that we spoke about in 2021 and suggested that we turn this into a podcast. Here we are, a brand new year with a podcast to start with. It can only get better. But let me not be rude and not ask about your Christmas celebration and how the new year went down. I hope it was good. Well, I pray that 2022 becomes the best year that you have seen so far. Amen. Now, a few days ago, I sent out a little request asking for suggestion for the title of this podcast. I wrote out a list of titles and asked you to choose, and y'all picked your favorites. Well, I had promised myself that I would pick the one with the highest number of votes. But some titles sat there in the tally box, and I just didn't know what to do. So, finally, I've decided to combine the best two that you have chosen to name this podcast. Subsequently, I will use the other topics for the weekly shows, since you guys took steps in giving good reasons why you picked your favorites. And so this podcast will be called This Thing in the Mud, a weekly candid tales by Uncle Don. Now, I hope that you are also happy with the combination. The podcast will border on unique social episodes and would be a fusion of great storytelling and opinions that are not too cliche, sometimes funny, yet overall educating. It will be time considerate and hopefully resonate very well with you, the audience. I am hoping to have a good time doing this, and I must say a big thank you for being part of this, giving this podcast the life that it needs. So, without further ado, this week, being the beginning of the year 2022, we will talk about something a little bit more serious. So here we go. Intentionality and Pride. There is an old story of a man called the coffin seller who took a rather crazy path in his life in making his point clear. Someone in his community had come up with the theory that because the man sold coffins, he was indirectly supporting the death of people in the community. Now, it was a weird assertion, yet people ran with it. Every time the man tried to explain that it wasn't his fault, they shut him down. He was a stammerer, and that made things a bit more difficult. The community made fun of him and did all sorts of uncalled for things. One day, the man couldn't take it anymore when the insult extended to his family. And so he decided to extend a hand of invitation to the community, calling it the I Am Sorry Party. He said he wanted to apologize for running a shameful business. Some people showed up for the party, and some didn't show up. But the coffin seller did what he had to do. He wiped out the entire party guests with poisoning and ran away with his family in the thick of the night. Now, I'm telling you this story because sometimes we hear things and run with it without making proper findings. The internet is awash with these kinds of things, and there's a lot of anger going on. Human beings are becoming more fragile emotionally and a lot more sensitive these days. Even a question of how are you can split into 100 different meanings. Now, even though I do not support violence, it is almost becoming a thing that celebrities would rather settle a dispute or accusation with a boxing bout these days. Because obviously, when words fail to do justice, a physical tussle is another way to drive home a point. But this cast is not about going to war. It is about intentionality. It is about pride. You see, if there's anything you've told yourself to do this year, it's to be intentional with your actions. That's a perfect resolution. Don't just run with the crowd. Treat people better intentionally. Verify your information before passing it to the next person. Be intentional in giving yourself rest. The world will go on if you're gone. And pride. Yes, pride. Swallow your pride before it kills you. And sometimes mistakenly kills the other fellow. I know that sign. Yes, I know that feeling of your heart beating like a Lister engine when the altercation seems not to be your fault, and the other person is not making an effort to say, I am sorry. Yes, I know that feeling. But like they say, most disputes are resolved by one person taking the first step of being the mature individual. You don't always have to be right for peace to reign. The subject of conflict resolution should be a topic taught in schools at an early age, because what we grow up with forms us and directs our path to be a better human. These days, the world is a bit up there. People are high tempo, and everyone claims innocence. Tolerance takes the back seat, and we do not understand that sometimes reading body language and applying emotional intelligence can keep the world from burning down. I have seen a man use a broken bottle on another man because he wasn't given a chance to properly articulate his feelings. The other party was all over him, shouting him down like a piece of shit because he could. The guy knew no other way to respond but to do what he had to do. His words failed him, and he even forgot the option of walking away. But who is to be blamed? Life is simple, like they say, but human beings make it hard sometimes. Every day is a big experience for all of us. But if we just try and look at things differently, life can just be a little bit easier, more friendlier, more lovely. Sometimes the simple things of life count, and we should always try our best to make sure that applies to our daily living too. Be aware at every point in time. And that's too much advice for one cast. Next week will be purely storytelling. The name remains Uncle Don. Stay safe, and I will see you next week. All my love.
I'm here to admit that you were my medicine. Oh, I couldn't quit, and I'm down on my knees again, asking for nothing. Thank you for the happiest year of my life.